if you know anti-money laundering laws, they're written. They're pretty specific. They say you need to have a program. So somewhere along the line, someone decided we just want to make more money. We don't have time to worry about compliance.
Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to Wrestling Payments, a podcast where we help payment professionals contend with the challenges of modernizing their payments operations and identifying ways to build for the future. If you're interested in payments innovation and modernization, you're in the right place. Now, let's get into it.
Hey, welcome to Wrestling Payments. This is take 2 of this episode because I had no audio. So we're going to go through the whole episode again. I think maybe this time I'll be better at it because I had a rehearsal. But I'm here to share a thought. Really a nagging thought or an idea or give you a little peek inside my head, which is, could be scary, but stick with me. What we're going to talk about is how I look at compliance, knowledge, skill building, efficiency, all of those things. So if you're new to the show, I work at an association for financial institutions. We teach them all about electronic payments. I'm a little fidgety, so I'm going to try to stop moving around. We teach them all about electronic payments, and there are really, and I'm sure this is true in any industry, there are things you need to learn and steps you need to implement in order to be compliant with whatever regulations or rules or procedures you have in your industry. In our industry, it's financial institution, it's banking regulations, financial regulations, rules, laws, all of those things. And at one point, I couldn't get out of my head something I connected with from my childhood with being compliant, being up to date with everything you're supposed to know and do. And that changes all the time. So let me bring you back to my childhood. Back in the day, we didn't have American Idol or America's Got Talent. We had the Ed Sullivan Show. And the Ed Sullivan Show was a variety show. You got to see your stars on, the Beatles were on there, local acts were on there. But one of the acts you would see on Ed Sullivan and then other shows, maybe even the Gong Show, that one was a hoot if you're not familiar with the Gong Show, was this spinning plate act. And I have a video. If you're listening to this, I want you to use your imagination. The performer would have all of these sticks standing up in front of them on a table. And they would take a plate and they would spin the plate. And then they would whip the plate around with the stick. And then at the peak of it, the plate would be spinning on the point of the stick. Then they would go to the next stick and do the same thing, looking back at the first stick to make sure the plate was still spinning. Then they would go to the next stick and so on. And they would go down different channels, areas, if you will, spinning all these plates. And I'm going to play it in a second, but I want you to think of that as operations, compliance, risk management, finance. I make that connection in my head. So let's take a look at the show. And this is from Ed Bren, plate spinning. Oh, on the Ed Sullivan Show. I didn't even know. This is the one that reminded me of what I would see as a kid. But if you're watching on YouTube, this is another video. You should go to that video. This is not my video. Please don't take me down because I'm showing someone else's video. So you notice he's spinning the plates. He's looking now. In this case, he's got plates on the table too, and he's spinning them, and he's making I think he's got that stick. He's has to run back to the first department to make sure it's working at its peak efficiency. No plates are falling. Oh, and he has a little transfer stick, making sure everything keeps running at the right spinning and level. Now it slows down a little, right? Looks like it's almost going to fall off, but then he gives it some attention, makes sure it continues to spin, everything's working at the right speed and function. And just a little bit we can stop that because the people listening are going, I don't know what he's doing. But this is from the Ed Sullivan Show. All credit and rights to that video to the Ed Sullivan Show. That is not our content. But as you think of this, I want you to think of the news reports you hear, right? So we hear news reports all the times of bad things that happen. And I'm not going to go into a lot of examples, but I got a couple examples that I did think of the spinning plates as I got this example. Here's the very first one, right? So this is the very first one. This is a fact that Robinhood got in trouble for AML, anti-money laundering restrictions, not following the law. And if you know anti-money laundering laws, they're written, they're pretty specific. They say you need to have a program. So somewhere along the line, someone decided we just want to make more money. We don't have time to worry about compliance. Well, in this case, it resulted in a fine. This was a $30 million fine, not the last fine that Robinhood has gotten. No shade to Robinhood, but you know, the line here that stuck with me, and we've just launched NEACH with the New England Automated Clearinghouse, and this is one of our courses, and I've required this course to be in a couple of different programs. Let's see. The New York Department of Financial Services, DFS, has entered a crypto AML enforcement fray, issuing a $30 million fine to Robinhood Crypto LLC, the crypto trading unit of the larger parent firm, for AML program deficiencies and failure to maintain a culture of compliance. I encourage our members to have embrace a culture of compliance. You, as a financial institution, you can look at it as work and, I got to do that compliance thing again. Or you can embrace it and say, we're really good at this. And we should be good at this across the board. They faced a $30 million fine because they did not have a culture of compliance. And was it a mystery? Was it a secret? Did they not know what they didn't know? No, it's super clear. Do your work, do a risk assessment, develop programs to be compliant with the law. This is not, I always look for in new things like in AI or in, back in the day it was e-learning, always look for the secret. This is the answer. It's going to solve everything. It's the killer app. There's no killer app. This is follow the rules. They're written. It's not a mystery. And just to continue that was some time ago. I think that was in 2022. Let's go to this week. This week, the CFPB ordered Cash App to pay a $170 million fine to fix its failure and fraud. And I think if you work down here, it's going to show that their Cash App created the conditions for fraud to proliferate on its popular payment platform. When things went wrong, Cash App flouted its responsibility and even burdened local banks with problems that the company caused. This is from the CFPB. It's a press release. So they did not do what they were supposed to do. Was it a secret? It was not a secret. They should have had a plan to say, oh, we had a fraud on our platform. Let's take care of that fraud. But what they did, and here's the problem, I'm going to get a little deep here, and I apologize if you're not a payment professional, but here's the deal. Someone will say, I had a fraud on my account. Someone scammed me or duped me into sending them money, and I never got the puppies or the kittens or the tickets. So they go into their financial institution, and the financial institution says, okay, what was the transaction? Oh, it was a transaction from Cash App. Do you have a valid authorization with Cash App? Yes, I do. They're stuck. For an ACH debit, they're stuck. There is a proper authorization with Cash App. The financial institution can take a loss and pay for the kittens or the tickets that the bank or the credit union never got, or they can say, you need to go back to Cash App, because Cash App is where the fraud took place. And Cash App would say, oh yeah, you need to work that out with your bank. I think, allegedly. This is for educational purposes only. Every disclosure I could throw out there. Please don't sue me. But that's what's happening. The financial institution stuck. When that happens with a PayPal transaction or a Cash App transaction, uh, or even a Zelle transaction, the transaction was authorized. It wasn't, Cash App has an authorization that says, I need, when I make a purchase, take it out of my account. That's authorized. So the problem is with those vendors, those third parties that you need to work it out with as a consumer. But in this case, as CFPP fined Cash App $175 million for saying, call the financial institution, allegedly, for educational purposes only. Okay, what else we got? Oh, that's the second, again, it's the Cash App article. Here's another one. So let me get to the article here. We talk about not following, spinning that plate, keeping everything running at the right process. Sometimes you're going to have to redo the work. You're going to have to go back to the beginning and say, we've had a new technology change. Let's do a risk assessment on this process and see where our risks are. Let's address those risks, mitigate those risks, make sure we have controls in place for those risks to be compliant with all the regulations. This is a case, an unfortunate case, again, for educational purposes only, and this is going to be a short episode. I think it's going to be less than 15 minutes, so we're almost done. But in this case, we have Cretan, hope I'm saying that right, FCU. They just recently entered into a merger after suffering a $13.5 million loss. And hopefully this never happened at your institution, but this was because, and this is behind a paywall at AML Credit Union Times, but we don't need to go and see the whole article to put it together. It takes an act of Congress in this article to get anything done in Washington, but it took the act of only one congressman to get the answer from the NCUA, Office of Inspector General, on why Nebraska's Cretan Federal Credit Union was merged last year after posting a $13.5 million loss. The OIG determined that the loss accumulated over 2.5 decades because of the financial statement fraud perpetrated by the former CFO, not for his personal gain, but to make the credit union appear that it was thriving. So what controls were not in place to be able to say these financial institutions accurately represent the position of the financial institution? 2 decades, 2.5 decades, 25 years of not having that plate spin and having it crash down and not be at your efficient and peak. It doesn't have to be spinning super fast, just has to be spinning enough to keep in compliance, to keep in the risk management, to keep the financials, right, at where they're supposed to be. What controls are in place for financial solvency? Were there auditors? What happened? 2.5 decades. That's no small feat. I don't know the details beyond that for this. I don't know if the person passed and then everything came tumbling down, or they were caught. But I'm sure you can find more information on that someplace else. But, this goes back to, one of the cores on the channel is training, education, being knowledgeable. Let's talk about these things. Let me share something controversial like spinning plates to see if, that gives you a different perspective on how things need to be in order to avoid, at all points, we want to avoid fines. We want to avoid failures. We want to avoid all of these things. And one of the ways to do that is through training and education. We don't have an official sponsor for this series yet, and we're welcome to my first episode of season 3. I'm told that if we get 10 or 15 more episodes in the can, we are at the top 95% of podcasters because they don't last. So stay with me. click, blink, look, do all the things you're supposed to do. Share the podcast. Send in questions. Maybe you disagree with my whole plate analogy. Love to talk about it. Love to have you on the show. So thanks for tuning in. Welcome to our new season. Have a good day.
On behalf of NEACH, your trusted resource in payments, and our guests, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning into the podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to hear more about payments innovation and modernization, you can find the Wrestling Payments Podcast on the podcast page of NEACH.org or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Just search for Wrestling Payments in your podcast app. Thanks for listening.